Okay, thank you. I just need to flick back to the slideshow. Sorry, we've got a little bit of a moment here in Zoom. And there we go. Right. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to our AI masterclass on unleashing the power of AI for teachers. I'm Dr. David Bish. Thank you, Lila, for the introduction. I'm Director of Academic Management and Product Development here at EF International Language Centers, and quite literally here in our Nerve Center, if you like, in Zurich. And I'll be talking for the next hour about AI and trying to make it very practical for teachers with a variety of things that you can do, take away, and use in your class, either directly or indirectly. And I thought I'd start for a moment with a word from Philip Holt, chairman of EF Education First. We're still a family-owned company, owned by the Holts here at EF, and Philip really has a very strong opinion on AI that it's going to change. As you see, AI will change education, but we don't think it will replace teachers. We think it's going to superpower them, using tech to make teachers super teachers and learners super learners. That's our motto. Little bit jingoistic, but that's the way we see things. We don't see robot teachers, and I'm really not going to be talking about any of that kind of thing. I'm going to be talking about ways which you, as teachers, can leverage AI in your day-to-day teaching, something which will speed up the process of getting good quality lessons together, and something which makes preparation a lot easier, and also your lessons are potentially richer and more exciting for your students. I remember a number of years ago, I was involved in a debate in Tissot, France, and there at the debate, my position to defend was that information technology saves teachers time. And I think really up to really the point that we're reaching now, using information technology in class often took extra time, extra complications, things to organize. But really, where we're at now with AI, there's a lot of things that can be done to streamline the work you do, make things easy, and really, as Philip says, superpower some of the things that you do. So let's get into that. With a little bit of a background here. I mean, what is AI and what do I intend to cover today? And if I don't, I'm not talking about robot teachers. What am I talking about? So, um, this is, I guess, this is the popular conception of AI. This kind of sort of humanized, this anthropomorphized kind of human with this kind of computer in their mind. But let's take away this fact that it's okay. It's artificial intelligence, but there's nothing about human in there. So we're going to take the human away from that diagram. I hope if my click works, there it goes. Because what we're really looking at is a set of models, really mathematical models, and we've got we go from data through mathematical equations, through mathematical processing, using probability models, which large language models are coming to more work on and are trained. They're based on millions and millions of pieces of data or parameters, as they call them, when they're putting this data into an AI model, and we look mathematically. Machine looks mathematically at the patterns that relate these bits of data together, and then how probable one piece of data is to follow another or just simply be related to another. Like, for example, like the word dark is related to a picture which is mostly black. You know, that there's a little tiny kind of connection that AI is making in its modeling, but it is making millions and millions and millions of those connections, from millions and literally billions. We talk about things like ChatGPT, of course, billions of data items, billions of parameters have been put together to mark up piece of language in that case. And so what the AI does is breaks down all of that data and spots patterns. Probability is very important here, because if AI really looks for a set pattern that exists all the time, that doesn't really happen in the real world. And as it's trying to fake what happens in the real world, this is where the AI uses what some people call fuzzy logic, the idea of things not always being a direct connection. So it goes with things that are true most of the time. Because as we bring in data from the real world, we get several competing ways to say things. There's lots of different ways to express one sentence in English, for example. Lots of different words I could choose after each word in the sentence. So it can choose the most likely combinations. And we throw in a little bit of, or they throw in a little bit of randomness to that probability. Otherwise, the AI tends to always give the same answers. And it does, in most probable answers, it doesn't feel very natural. And part of this artificiality is to make things feel and appear natural. So it's got a little bit of randomness in. Some of you may have heard the term hallucination from AI, where the AI chooses something accidentally that's so random. I mean, it's got no deliberate and accidental, right? It's just purely working on probabilities. It doesn't realize it's making a mistake. There's no it to make a mistake. It's just a set of mathematics. So on probability, sometimes the probability that is selected with a bit of randomness comes up with a fact or a picture or a sound that is completely wrong. That's called a hallucination. The AI doesn't really know. It's got something quite random in there. So that's one to watch out for. Now, as the AI is given this data and works on the mathematical formulae and produces a probabilistic what will happen next, for example, what color this picture should be, how many, whether this diagram should have legs or arms as it draws it, what cartoon style it should be in if it's drawing, or what word comes next in a sentence. As it builds up sets of facts about this, these are called models. And some of my colleagues at EF would actually say, well, there's no such thing as AI at all, really. What it really is machine learning, machine constructing a model. And those models allow us to break down patterns, and the machine understands patterns better than it can necessarily explain them. It doesn't show it's working out necessarily, but it will be able to explain and spot patterns in things like genetic codes, outside language teaching for a moment, forecast weather. Okay, so it can see the weather patterns, so it can bring us to forecasts. It can recognize images. It can copy image styles as well and bits of images to apparently create new pictures on request. And as we come more to our world, of course, it can follow how a human voice, an accent, an intonation resolves into words and sentences. And then the other way around, it can replicate that, follow that pattern back of human natural grammar to translate natural language into instructions. This is done by kind of decoding what we type into instructions and then encoding data back into language that we can follow. Right, so that gives us what we call natural language. But that natural language model is made up of lots of different sub-models, things that are looking at grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, if it's going to be a speaking test. So we get a model that we can potentially get output from. This model has been trained on a lot of data that's been fed into it, either a lot of pictures or a lot of words and so on, to build these AI probabilistic models. Okay, sorry for the lengthy background there, but then how does that help us as teachers, right? Let's get a bit more academic than that. Well, we need to go from a prompt. Here's an example of a prompt, something that we could say or type in this case to the model here, and then the model can produce something that we can work with. Most likely here, when I ask what is a CEFR, that's what's the Common European Framework of Reference, I will get either texts out, images out, video or audio, and I get different things depending on what model or AI tool I work with. And that can be automated into a more sophisticated system, or it would use something very popular like one of these large language models, which is the most likely thing that we're going to use, the most common thing, most flexible way people use AI for teaching. We work with a large language model. Very different ones of these are often called chats, and we'll see those in use in just a moment. So this pedagogic AI use, I take a step back. I want to think about how we teach and learn. Here, I'm not going to focus on using AI for some of the admin tasks that we use in teaching. As I mentioned, it can spot patterns. So it's a great thing for organizing, for example, school timetables and scheduling. Also large scale potential marking and stuff like that. I'm not going to talk about that at the moment. I'm going to talk about two types of AI use that state. We have something called direct use, or a direct use kind of paradigm, where the AI is going to respond straight to the learner. Okay, or the user gets a straight response. That's normally where we somehow put the learner in front of the AI. Some way, typically it might be for a homework or an extra assignment, or if you're a self-study learner, that's the kind of thing you might want to do, or if you're using it's part of project work and so on, that I might go into. But then also we have what I call indirect use of the AI. This is where you use the AI for preparation of material that you're going to use in delivering a lesson. So here, maybe you don't actually, the student may not even know that part of the lesson has been AI generated. We'll talk a lot about generation over the next 40 minutes. AI generated to produce texts that we use. Often our lessons are based around language lessons, based around a listening or reading text, images maybe, video and audio. Okay, so things that the students can use and that you can use in class, and you can build activities, tasks, exercises around. So using AI to help prepare those things, prepare the work with those, that's what I call indirect use. And I'm going to try and give you examples of both of those as we go through. I'll try and show you some live examples. It will get a bit messy as I'm switching around the screen shares, and I hope do let me know in the text chat when I try and show something if we're not seeing it, because I'm going to turn on and off a few bits of live demo, I hope, just to keep it interesting. So with AI with texts, I think is the quickest way to start here. And I've got, let me just get everything on the screen here. First of all, we need to get a text, right? We want to generate or grade a text. So to generate a text, we might actually be asking AI to write a text for us. Okay. Or we can grade it, where we start with an original or an authentic text and we give that to the AI, and we ask the AI to grade it. And by grading it, I mean to potentially alter it to make it a bit more classroom friendly, to make it something that we can work with a particular group of students with. For example, if you're working with an A1 class or something like that, you may want a text that's a bit lower level, that is clearer to read for your students. So now excuse me, seeing too many things on screen here. As we generate a text from scratch, we maybe start with the idea of the topic. Okay, I want to do a lesson about maybe a spooky house, for example. I'm going to do a lesson where I want it's going to be haunted houses. Maybe it's Halloween time of year or something like that. Maybe the topic right now, for example, you might come up with instead Chinese New Year might be a good topic you want. So I want something on Chinese New Year. I need a genre for that. So, for example, I want a news report. I'm going to use a news report in my lesson about something happening in Chinese New Year, and what kind of language I want there. So, in terms of what language, I'm thinking linguistically. If we're going to use this in a lesson, how many times has this happened to you when you go, "Oh, I want a lesson about a particular topic, but it's got to be using present perfect." Or it's got to be using simple past or the third conditional, because I want the students to work with that. So when we're working with AI, we can ask it very specifically to create a text in a topic, in a genre, including certain types of language. That's a very powerful way to make sure that we've got sort of input language created by an AI that's going to help us with tasks in the lesson. Whether or not we choose to show that text on the screen, for example, or give that text, send that text out to students, or whether we print that out and work with it, or later on we'll come on seeing some of the things we can do if we represent that text in other kinds of media. So we can generate a text, and then the last part of what we need to do, as I said, we can generate a text or change an existing text. Then the last part of what we need to do is create questions and tasks. We can use the AI to help us manipulate that text a little bit, make it into something that is good for the students to work with. I'll come to some examples of each of those steps in a minute. But the key thing we have to do to get a large language model AI to do this, I'm sure you've heard this word many times before, is Susan, I think we're going to be going through quite a long answer to that question. So if you listen all the way through, you might hear. The idea here is that we need to ask the AI sensibly what to do and simply what to do. A prompt is, as I've already shown you, that instruction. Really, with AI, it's not very complicated to write a program to get it to do anything like that. You really don't have to think in a kind of linear robotic way. You can put the question to it in simple language. So, for example, prompt here, I'll try this live in a second. What is the CEFR? Those of you who don't know, then we would expect the large language model to give us an explanation back. I actually find, this is a top tip, if you're working with language and you want to grade something, I usually use the CEFR, A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2 for my language teaching. And it's very common at EF to see a pathway through that. So when I get into any chat conversation, I usually start by checking that the language model I'm using, I'll show you several LLMs, the language model I'm using is aware we're talking about the CEFR and aware we're talking about language grades. So I start off by asking it a couple of questions like this, giving it a couple of prompts just to warm it up. Okay, and that, because it will have a memory throughout your conversation that you're having, but it might not remember things you've been talking about previously. So if we start talking about the CFR, and then in my second prompt, I've said, how can you tell if a text is B1 on the CFR? I'm gradually narrowing down. Now, as a teacher, those are the kind of instructions you're used to giving students, right? When you maybe break down an idea into several small steps. This I would recommend doing to make sure the AI is giving you the kind of answers you expect to see. If you see things back from the AI that really isn't following, you can alter your prompt by asking again, even get it to forget and restart the conversation. So I usually ask it what it knows about the CFR, how it would tell a level's different. So I get a few good examples of what it does. And only then I might throw an authentic text. Maybe I've copied and pasted a text off a news program, in this case, for example, about Chinese New Year. And I paste it in and I say, okay, what level is this text? And that would give me a level. And then I might say, okay, please adapt the text to a lower level, to B1, for example. And move on stages through that. So with starting with those texts, what we start to do is either grade or create a text with prompts, and I'll show you that live in a moment. And then once we have our text at a specific level, and we can ask it as well, please only put present perfect in it or something like that, and we've got a text at a specific level, then we can start to ask the AI to give us tasks to do with it. For example, write me 5 questions about the text, or maybe more specifically, give me 5 true or false questions about the text, or write 5 sentences from the text incorrectly. And we can even add to that. We can say, find 5 examples of present perfect in the text, write 5 examples of present perfect incorrectly. And so we can build up working from our text, and we can ask the AI to give us questions, if you like questions just about the text, or you can do something more sophisticated. For example, ask the AI to give you a summary of a text, or maybe split examples of sentences into beginnings and endings to work with the text. And really any kind of task or exercise that you're used to seeing in your course book. There must be favorite types of activities you like. Maybe word jumbles, for example. Make a word jumble from 5 sentences in the text. Um, uh, there are different things that you can do, or things where you ask it to take out the verb and put the verb in the infinitive and put that in brackets. You can actually ask the AI to do that. Right? So rewrite 5 sentences from the text with the verb in brackets in the infinitive. And you can see what it comes back with. If that instruction, that was just off the top of my head, so if that instruction didn't give exactly the right answer, slightly change the way you word it until you get something from the AI that looks exactly like what you want to copy paste into your worksheet or put on screen and give back to the students. So simply working with text and then using similar kind of ideas to what you're very used to using with any type of classroom exercise from your course book and so on, and reconstruct those kind of questions you like, questions that your students are familiar with, the way that you normally work. So you get the AI to give you fresh, extended material on top of your course book, or something that is very topical. Now, I'm going to show a little bit of that in a second, but this is so-called indirect use, right? So where you're creating text and making worksheets or making something to put on projector if you have one, or send to the students for homework, what have you. But then you might also give something direct to the students. Many teachers find this a bit more scary, where instead of you preparing a worksheet and doing that, and the students don't know the AI is even there, you say to the students, right, I want you to use an AI. And let's say, it's an example I'm going to try and stay with for the rest of the session. Let's say, for example, we are writing a ghost story or a horror story. And we say to the students, right, I want you to use the AI to get some planning, to build up your story. And this is, this might be what we call process writing, where we're getting them to draft and craft what they're actually doing, or loop writing, where they're writing back and forth with the computer. So we might say to them first, okay, I want you to ask the AI to give you a plan. And we can even give the students the prompt, give me 5 things that happen in every mystery story. I mentioned that AI has probability, doesn't always give the same answers. Even if the same or a bunch of your students are using the same AI, they will get different mistakes. Gina, you're repeating the point I made earlier about those hallucinations. Yes. But here with the plan, we're simply asking the student to come up with, asking the AI to give them 5 things. So they end up with a bullet point of 5 things that happen in a mystery story. Maybe we'll try this out in a second. Then we say to students, okay, I also want you to get some language. So maybe we say, okay, we want to see 10 things, or if your students are high enough level, 10 verbs. You might ask them to look for particular adjectives to use, for example, as well. So as I've done here, you can either give your students the prompts straight off to get them to try that, and give them a link to a large language model to try, or have them install it on their mobiles, and they will get some planning. So you want them to show that planning work. Maybe they send it in to you, or they have it at the head, and then they write the text themselves. Now, if they've written the text themselves off this, this solves one problem, which I'll talk about again and again here. It solves what I call the white paper problem. You say to your students, I want you to write something in class, and you just give them a sheet of paper, and they don't know where to start. They don't know where to begin. So we need a bit of inspiration, a bit of ideation. So working back and forth with an AI can give them a bit of control and get some fresh ideas, and also get some fresh language that they want to work into that into the text that they're writing. So we can get ideas, and we can also get structure. So let's sort of have a look at giving this a go. What I've done here is I don't know if you heard of this new AI from China. It was Chinese New Year, so good time to talk about it. There's an AI called DeepSeek out there. I put it on my phone. I had to go with it just before this session. And this is the answer it gave me to the what is a CFR question. And this is the answer he kept giving me to what is a CFR question. So I don't recommend at the moment, although you're going to hear a lot in it about the media, trying this one out because everybody's jumped on it and it's got very, very slow. And it's not giving answers in real time. But there are a variety of other models out there, of course. Here's a few names before I jump in and use one. Um, there is the obvious one, of course, that you've all heard of. So I'm not even going to say that because many people think AI is this one large language model we all know about. But there is Gemini, that's previously known as Lambda, large language model Lambda. Gemini, Copilot, Microsoft's one, Jasper Chat, Hugging Chat. It sounds like a funny name, but Hugging Chat is very powerful because if you use it, it's a bit tough to get started with. You have a few settings, but they're quite clear on the screen. But when you go to Hugging Chat, you can actually choose which language model it uses. So it's got a lot of flexibility, and Hugging Chat is one of these, as many of them can do. Hugging Chat can automate adding speech recognition, so it will respond to your voice rather than typing, and it can reply to you by voice. That's a handy thing if we're going to use it directly with students potentially or for practice, although maybe right now I'm talking about some indirect use. So GenCraft, another one of these there, right? So to be honest, people are asking me, so which one's best and which one do I recommend? I can see these kind of things in the text chat. Any of these is worth a try, and there is obviously I expect we're going to crowdsource a lot more names that people like. Personally, I have found Gemini is very good to use because I'm not talking about fingers and ears right now. I'm talking about text. So these are really for text work. Gemini is very good at subtleties in text. It's very good at spotting CFR levels, and it's even good at realizing things like how many syllables are in a word, whether they rhyme, how they sound. So if you're doing something that has any kind of phonology in it, like if you want to do poems and things like that, I found Gemini was quite powerful. But I think they're all very useful. It's a case of how you use them, which is more what I'm trying to talk about, and the one that we all know the name of as well. But I don't just want to give an advertisement for that particular LLM. So now, trying to click through, sorry, getting all these questions coming through. What I've talked about just there can also be automated by tools. So I've talked about you kind of setting up a text and you doing things with text. But there are a bunch of teacher tools out there. These often have a subscription model, so you end up paying for something ultimately. I think TeachMate is an interesting example. And the reason I mentioned TeachMate, not because I recommend you buying it, but you'll actually see that when you click on the menu of TeachMate, which I'm showing you below here, it can do things like make slideshows, make lesson plans, write an overview to a topic, give the text, and then write some questions after it. The worksheet, make a worksheet with specific learning objectives. Now, if you see, rather than these things you want to use TeachMate for, if you see these things as ideas and patterns of what you want to do, you can do exactly that with any large language model. So these kind of recommendations, for example, that topic planner there, make a topic overview of any topic that you're teaching or something the students are writing about or working with. You can ask an AI to do that in a couple of prompts. Maybe it's not beautifully formatted. Maybe you need to tidy it up a little bit in your word processor, but you can also do those things by generating prompts. Same with as I mentioned, comprehension generator, you can do that with any large language model, as long as it's got the text in there, and you can send it the text. You can say, make me 10 true or false questions about this text, or 10 questions that use the simple past about this text, for example. You can build that. Again, worksheets. Maybe worksheets got several types of questions or things you like. Even if it's something like a word search, you can ask the AI, or a set of crossword puzzles. You can ask the AI to produce these from your text. Again, you can ask the AI to write a letter, a sample model letter as well, for something like maybe it's a letter to the newspaper talking about a Chinese New Year festival in your town. So you can get an example from the AI. It can write a letter, and then maybe students, their task is to read the letter, imagine they saw the festival, and respond to it. Okay, so this is possible. But Annette is saying we don't have to do this all digitally. Remember, I agree completely. This can all be indirect use. So this can be worked into your planning to prepare and give the students work beforehand. So whether you're writing some of these questions on the board, if that's the tools that you have in the classroom, it's the preparation you're getting here. Whether you're showing things up on a screen, a PowerPoint like I'm doing now, or whether you're directly sending them to students. The digital is being used here for the preparation. I mentioned also brisk teaching here. That works in a very similar way. That takes a website and it will make it into a specific grade level. As I mentioned, it will grade a text, so you can now give that to your students with questions about it. So it's a very handy way to turn a text into a set of questions, but you can do that with any large language model. Copy paste the text in and tell it what kind of questions you want. Tell it if it needs to adapt to any level, as I said. There's another tool here, Twee, which does exactly the same thing, except Twee will do this with a video. So to Twee, you send it the link of a video, and it will transform that video into a set of questions that you can use to see that the students have understood. So it sort of works with the transcript, and it makes questions from a video. So a simple way to do some preparation. Then you can play the video in the class, or students can watch it on their phone, and then all of these aren't ultimately free. But again, my point is the notions that these use, right, the ideas that these have, are exactly things you can simply ask any large language model to do. So the tools that I've already mentioned on the previous page can do exactly these things. You just need the ideas of what to do. So you can take a script from a YouTube video, and YouTube videos, they actually generate scripts. You can paste that script into a large language model and say, write 10 questions for me. So these teacher tools for indirect use are not free, but the ideas that they have are ideas that you can apply on free large language models. Here is something free from EF. Just want to show this one for a moment. This is a tool called EF Speak, and this leverages AI in a slightly different way. This allows you to actually make your own activities and exercises, and to make your own activities and exercises, and to use the power of AI so that the students can speak responses. So though it's indirect in that you as a teacher prepare your own questions, you put your own questions into it, you can generate online activities that work with that. I've put the link there. Let's see if I can, I should be able to just show that on screen for you. Let's see if I can do that for a moment. Trying to get this live. I did mention that these things would be a little bit tricky. Let's come back. Sorry, we've lost them. Okay. So I mentioned EF Speak. Excuse me, I'll try and jump through. So this is EF Speak, where we can actually create activities like this. You can see here where there is a speaking role play, and we've preset the role play, we've preset how the answers should work, and this is embedded with AI so that the student can actually speak to it, and it will respond with the next point in the question. And as it goes through, we'll actually be able to mark the student's accuracy, fluency, and stress. So that's a little bit more powerful, rather than you have to create the exercises, but you can you can share that with your students via a link that they can do online. That is completely free for any teacher to make an account and share lessons, and that is a multilingual tool that you can try out. So that's speak@ef.com, as I mentioned. Now, I just wanted to quickly show while I've gone online for a moment. Let's jump into Microsoft. I've just cleared Copilot here. I'm going to try and do this live. I hope you're seeing that. It says the shared window is closed. I think you're not seeing the window. Excuse me. Thank you for the message. One moment. Are you seeing that again now? Some raised hands. I'll assume those raised hands are yeses. So I'm going to pop back, just quickly show you. This was EF Speak. This appears to be, you appear to be seeing that right now. So EF Speak, as I mentioned, allows you to create activities here, such as speaking dialogues or questions. You can have it so the students can see the text that you've created. So you create your text with AI, you can create questions with AI, and then you can make this an interactive quiz. So EF Speak will make you quizzes. It will allow students to type in a normal way, but also the power of this is that students can speak in their conversations. I won't try and run this now because the screen share is being a little bit tricky. So thanks for pointing that out. We had a little hiccup there. Now, here I mentioned, so I can say, for example, what is the CFR? And I'm just using this live in Copilot. It should be generous enough to ignore. Here we go. And this is coming straight out of the AI. So again, as I mentioned, I might say, how can I tell if a text is B1, B2, I've just typed. Got a little bit there. And then I might paste a text in, or I might say, write me a 100-word text on Chinese New Year at B2. So and I've got a text I can work with. As people have said, maybe we do want to check that seems to make sense. There's no unsavory ideas in there, but this is fairly safe. Just maybe the meanings might just want a bit of a check. But now we can go on and ask questions. For example, write me two true, false questions about this text. There we go. And we might, of course, want to get it to tell us the answers. But as you can see, we can basically work here and build up the idea of of sort of worksheet or something. So using those same ideas that we've seen from other tools, or the same ideas, same kind of way that your textbook normally works, you can create a set of exercises that you might work with. So I'm going to jump back into. Let's move on. My screens are not behaving brilliantly. So I'm going to move on from text. I'll stay on the live example a moment while I restart the PowerPoint. We're going to go from there on to using a image generation. So Let's imagine that we need some images for our text, and I've jumped into GenCraft, a nice simple example. Here's my prompt because GenCraft shows this prompt in exactly the same way, and I just asked a cartoon of two teachers speaking, and this one of the teachers is thinking about a mystery story set in an old house. You see, I tried this a little bit earlier, so I've got a load of different examples. I can choose the one I like. And as we said, sometimes the AI gets it wrong. There's a strange arm going on here. So I wouldn't use that one. But I can generate sets of images off the prompt. Now, I may need to edit that picture a little bit if I want to use it in class, but this is a very simple way to get absolutely any image generated. So we might want a picture to go with an article on Chinese New Year. And it's going to think for a little bit. This is reasonably quick. Um, and those are some adverts for me. And here we go. Right. So that was absolutely live, and that was that quick for the AI to come up with that. So again, if we want inspiration for the students, as I mentioned again, some pictures to work with, this is a very powerful way to do it. Now, I think my next click is Canva here. Right. Let's just go back to the beginning of this little slideshow. So I've used here a tool that maybe many of you know. Often teachers use this as a free tool. This is Canva. And Canva now has AI built into it. So it's a very, very simple way of adding images. So down the menu down here, if I scroll down, um, we can use Magic Media, and that will allow us to add AI pictures into there, right? So again, you type in a prompt and you get what you want. Just as I've seen there. So just focus on what I've got on the screen on a second, because I prepared these a little bit earlier just so that we can see some of the stuff that can be done. So for example, you're teaching a lesson and you need a picture of something and you simply can't find it on the internet, or what you find on the internet isn't suitable. For some reason here, as I was planning, I was thinking of a lesson where I was talking about laundry and laundrettes and where people have their washing done. And it was about having something done for you. It was working on the causative, but I couldn't find good pictures. So I wanted different pictures of laundrettes. Now, I might even for students to use this directly. Here I've got a pair of pictures, both generated from the same prompt, but because they're slightly different, this also gives us that lovely kind of exercise, very common in Cambridge exams, where students talk about two similar pictures. And of course, because the prompt can include any words we want, we can make sure there are certain pieces of lexis in the pictures that students work with. So if we're either showing these on screen or sending them to students' phones, we can use these pictures here, or even if we're printing them on handouts. Again, the straightforward things there, like just laundrettes, but maybe now I want the difference between doing laundry at home or doing it yourself and having it done. Very quick to get pictures that illustrate something you need. As somebody who works with writing course books, I also work with a team here who are constantly writing the course books and online and having to find matching images. And finding matching images to your ideas or to go on to help students realize where you are in the lesson often is the slowest part of any production of educational material. And because with AI, if you're happy with something that's AI generated, you can simply ask and produce something more or less instantly. You get this much, much quicker. So it does save anybody time. And of course, sometimes you want something that there really wouldn't be a picture of unless you ask the AI, because it doesn't really exist, but you want a nice picture. So for some reason, maybe I want a giraffe in that laundrette. Maybe this is somebody, students are telling a story or something. You want to add a little spice to it. Or we were talking about why giraffes don't go skiing. This might be a nice discussion lesson, why something about small furry animals and big animals with long necks and natural selection. There's a whole kind of reasoning lesson here, and I wanted that picture there. Or again, Maybe I've got my teachers imagining the haunted house story. And because I'm in Canva, I can use the other sort of drawing tools here to do things like put I can put the speech bubble there. I can write all over it. I can make this. So using the AI in Canva is a nice simple way of producing some pictures and adding them into your worksheets or whatever you want. There is, um, again, this is just an example. You can cut and paste from any of the AI tools. Many of the image generation tools are free that are out there. I'll show you a bit of a list in a second. Many of them are free out there, but the idea is, one top tip from me is, if you're using something like an image generator, if you use a screen capture, right? So if you save the screen, you don't have to have a license that lets you save the images, right? So you could just capture this picture off the screen. Exactly the same is true if you're working with something like a video generator or a sound generator. If you've got something that will capture the screen with sound or capture the video on the screen, you can use one of these free generators that just doesn't simply download and take the image. Maybe I'm being a bit cheeky there, but that is certainly a way around getting something for classroom use, which is often accepted in copyright legalities. Just a couple more examples of images before I come back to the slideshow here. Maybe, for example, we want the image to inspire some students' conversation, something for projects, for example. That's done a lot in teaching material. So here we're getting students to explain a sort of sequence of events, for example, what happens to what. This is done by that. So maybe we start to get a little bit of passive, how something happens. We talk about what happens to the ball, how is the ball made to move. So you can here I've used a picture of a machine to get ways in which students will have to use a certain type of language to explain something. And of course, stories, as Mario Imberucci says, stories, oldest form of language teaching. I asked the AI here to give me a set of pictures, and I hope you can see here. It's a bit small, so I try and full screen that for you. This is me. I've got so many mouses. Here we go. There we go. I asked it for a story, and I stuck and pasted several images and made a story up myself of Sherlock Holmes here. And as you can see, Sherlock Holmes is in London, and then an alien calls at Sherlock Holmes's door. My next prompt, I said, an alien is asking Sherlock Holmes for help. Then I said, Sherlock Holmes is in a spaceship, and Sherlock Holmes is on a planet. Right. And it generated me a lot of pictures, and I chose the best ones. But now I have something which I could show to my students and get them to write a story about that. And of course, okay, I chose Sherlock Holmes, forgive me, but you can choose any topic you want. And you can even do this potentially in real time in classes and get students to generate the ideas for their story, or use it directly, get the students to work on an image generator on their phones and choose their own story. So I've got a few suggestions. Excuse me, I'm trying to get back to my other screen here, and this won't do that until I minimize. And I'm just going to restart the slideshow for you. One moment. And I hope you're seeing that now. And so I showed you GenCraft at the beginning, but here are a few image generators. The classics are Midjourney and DALL-E, but I find the ones lower down this list here, iTubo, GenCraft, Bing's very useful, and that's sort of free. Google has a good one, but Google only works in the US, certainly doesn't work in Switzerland, and Canva. But the thing is, if you're looking for an AI image generator, Google is your friend. Just type AI image generator into Google, see what it comes up with, try a few things out. So that's a way of getting any picture you need, or a series of pictures you need to help ideate, to generate ideas with students. And as I said, you can give ask them to look at this on their phone, get some pictures, build up a story, start discussions, compare pictures. Very often, this works nicely with mobile devices because it's nice and simple to get going. So that's the Canva thing I did. Now I want to talk a little bit about voice. So again, if you find it hard in your class to get texts and pictures, I know you're going to find it even harder in your class to get listening texts. And I know every language teacher wants them. If you teach around the world in different places, obviously it's really hard to get quality recordings of people speaking, let's say, with different accents. You desperately want an American accent, for example, and you're in another part of the world, maybe you can't get examples of that. Plus, listening material you get often doesn't match the topic. So let's think about using AI to generate voices. Now, I've pre-recorded me playing with one of these, so you can see what I'm putting in there. Now, instead of prompts here, I'm using, in this example, I was using play, and I can simply put in a script, and I can put in a dialogue script with play, which is really powerful because I can have a couple of different speakers. You're going to hear what this sounds like in just a moment, I hope. I've got a couple of different speakers, and as you can see, I can choose their accents and I can choose which models. And as you go through this, you can sort of play and make sure that that sounds how you want the voice to sound like. I've used Play, I've used InVideo, Veed. HeyGen is very, very powerful, and that works for a limited period free. I'll show you some examples of that in a moment. Let's just hear this dialogue then. And again, this is my imaginary two teachers talking about using AI in their lessons. Okay, so it's just what I could come up with as an example. Clearly, there could be any example, but let's hear what it sounds like.
Hi there, Angelo.
Hey, Naya, good to see you. How are things?
Not that, but my teaching's getting me down.
How so? I thought you really liked your new students.
Oh, I do. They're great and so keen for new ways to learn. It's just the material in my course book is a bit old school, and it's quite demanding creating fresh material for them all the time.
Have you thought about trying AI to help out?
No way, don't be silly. I am terrible with computers, and AI freaks me out a bit.
I know you are always using your laptop for worksheets and stuff. Why not give it a try?
Yes, but AI is a little different from word processing. Anyway, I really need some listenings. The students are getting bored with listening to me all the time, and I sound so silly putting on different voices. They aren't kids.
Okay, well, then why not try this? It's a nice way to make a dialogue with any text and voices you want. You can even use the AI to help you write a good script.
I'm not sure. Would you have time to show me?
Of course, let's give this a go, but you'll see how to use it in no time.
Okay, so I didn't want to interrupt that one because that one's so clear. Hope you like that. What's important here, you can see on the right, I can actually choose from different versions of how it sounds, how the AI has rendered that into speech. And as the AI does that, it puts in its own nuances. It's not simply taking the text and converting each text to a phonemic sound. It's also noticing some of what it can work out of apparently the meaning to try and give some interesting intonation. There was that laugh. I never put that laugh in the text, but the AI decided that the teacher should nervously laugh at that point. And there are quite a few things that make it sound very human and very natural. So a nice way to, maybe you even generate the text with AI, and then you can feed it to a tool like this to get texts that fit audio text that fit what you want to listen to. They can be at the right level, they can be at the right topic, so you can generate that, and you can then copy paste that into a voice generator. And as I mentioned our own EF Speak. That will allow you to do that. You can I did that completely free. Someone was asking. I haven't paid for any of the things that we've used so far. Most of these things give you They give you a certain number of credits, and as long as you don't use them too fast and you're a bit cautious about what you do, you can produce things. Often these don't let you download your creations, so you can do exactly what I did there and use a screen recorder to get the audio. Right. So you get something that you can use in class that's a text that's unique. Your students are getting that special from you. And of course, students will usually be very excited about that. I also mentioned students can use AI for a chat type discussions with the fact that AI can listen and they can speak back quite directly as well. Here's an example. AI does have a very limited free tool that you can use, EF Hello, which has got thousands of dialogues built in, where the AI is able to have a conversation on a particular topic itself. But a student or you can do that with any of the large language models for free with a plugin that allows you to make it speak. So you want to text to speech plugin and a voice recognition plugin. And you'll find, again, search engine is your friend. So you look for speech plugin for whatever your favorite AI is. Okay, so I'm going to look at now just one more section before we go on to questions. And so we've talked about these uses of audio, but I think the last thing we want to see is some video. I've got examples here of indirect to direct use of AI with gradually more sophisticated examples of the tools in use here. So let's look first. Imagine you want, instead of an audio, you want something a bit richer. You want a video. In this case, I've simply created a video using my own face with HeyGen and my own voice. HeyGen, one of the tools, will allow you to use your own voice. You speak sentences, and it creates, if you like, a kind of voice font. So it will always sound like you and look like you. So let's try this first example. I think it's going to go full screen when I play it for you. It's a bit horrible.
Hi, this is AI David working direct from a script that the real David has never spoken. I think using AI in this way makes it easy for any teacher to produce unique listening content for their classes in clear English, French, German, Spanish, and so on for your language classes.
I'm not sure about how well the lips moved on that one, but you can hear that sounds a little bit like me, and that's allowing me to speak any text. Of course, with HeyGen, in this case, I have used my voice, but you can use an additional voice. I'm being told we're wrapping up time, so we're just going to show you these 2 seconds of.
And although this is based on a video of me in the office, I am using another voice with my face just to show the flexibility of what you can do.
That is with one of the built-in voices instead of my own voice, or you can give this to students directly to use, like this last video here, which I'll just close on. The last video here, if students are using an app on the phone, maybe they've made a text. This one is Veed. They've made a text and they just want something to read it out. As people are leaving now, look away now if you don't like ghostly Halloween figures, because I think this one's a bit of a jump scare, and I will finish on that one. If you can hear her speaking. She's super quiet, so you're not actually going to catch the voices. So I'm going to flick us on.
Hi, this is AI David working direct from a script that the real David has never spoken.
So I'm being told that we're wrapping up time-wise here. So thank you. I'm sorry we started a little bit late. I was trying to give you your full time there, but I hope you've caught a lot from that webinar. As you heard, we are going to be sharing the slides. So all of those AIs I mentioned, you'll get a chance to copy paste those if you haven't already, try out those names and see what you can do with your classes. Have fun with your teaching, and thanks very much for joining us for this webinar on unleashing the power of AI for improving your teaching. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you so
Bye-bye for
much,
now.
David. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you very much, David. If you've enjoyed David's presentation, please feel free to mention it in the chat, and please share a testimonial at teacher.zone@ef.com. This would be very, very much appreciated. Just tell us which country you're from and what you thought about today's class. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.